name is Eojin, and I'm the 8th grade. I'm in the 8th grade. I play the trumpet in symphonic band. I'm going to read If I Only Had a Horn by young Louis Armstrong. Louis opened the cupboard bare. He lifted the rug where his mother hid spare coins. Nothing. Come on, he said to his little sister, Mama Lucy. We're going to Uncle Ike's. At Uncle Ike's, 6 children were eating rice and beans out of one pot. Make that 8, with Louis and Mama Lucy. With all the clatter, Louis did not hear night slip in and wake up the city. By the time the pot was empty, music was everywhere. Dancing out of doorways, singing on street corners, riding in Lincoln Park on fat molecules of humid air. One sound in particular grabbed Louis by the collar. Sounds like Joe Oliver, he said, hurrying outside. He followed the sound to a crowd of bobbing heads and moving feet outside funky butt halls, and yes, it was Joe Oliver, the man they called King, crying wah wah on his cornet for all of New Orleans to hear. The snare drum stomped out a beat that shouted, "Move your feet!" So Louis danced as if the hot blast of music were scorching his bare feet, grinning as wide as the Big Dipper in the starry sky. "Go, Dipper Mouth, go!" someone called, and Louis danced harder because a good nickname is hard to come by, and he had just snagged a winner. When at last the band turned and marched, not missing a beat, into the hall, he grabbed a piece of the music riding the air to remember. Later that night, he would sit on the bed he shared with Mama Lucy and his mother, Mayan, and empty his head of all the music he had collected that day. In the dark, with his sister breathing softly beside him, he would put together a song. If I could sing, I could bring home pennies, play slow drag blues, tap happy feet blues till the sun rose, if I only had a horn. Louis and his 3 brothers went swimming in the river where the banana boats docked. Afterward, they strolled, cold and dripping, along the dock, and Big Nose Sydney started to sing. The other boys joined in, delivering a home sweet home. That was straight and true. A crowd gathered and started asking for favorite songs, and the boys sang them until their voices were no more than frog croaks, and Big Nose Sydney said, "That's all, folks," and passed his cap around Louis's eyes, almost popped out of his head when he saw the cap full of pennies. He felt in his pockets and took off. "Where are you going, Dipper?" "To buy rice and beans and fish heads for supper." The boys licked their lips. Everybody knew his mother Mayan, who made the best fish head stew in New Orleans. "Save some for us." But all they got was a bit of that dream song riding the breeze. If I could sing, I could bring home pennies, play slow drag blues, tap happy feet blues till the sun rose, if I only had a horn. On New Year's Eve, the city of New Orleans celebrated with bang and big time. Oh, the noise! Firecrackers, hot jazz music pouring out of the honky-tonks and pistols. People shot off anything that was handy, just for the fun of it. Louis and his gang were singing on the corner of Perdido and Rampart Streets, collecting pennies by the capful when a boy fired a 6-shooter across the street. "Go get him, Dipper," said Big Nose Sydney. Louis pulled out an old .38 that he had found in the bottom of his mother's trunk and shot it 6 times in the air. The boy ran off like a rabbit, and Louis and his buddy fell down laughing. Out of nowhere, a pair of strong arms grabbed Louis and shoved him into a black horse-drawn wagon with a little bitty grilled window. The wagon took Louis to jail. There was no dream song riding the breeze that night. Louis went to live at Colored Wife's home, a place for poor boys who got in trouble. It was like no home he knew, bread and molasses for supper, and no hot jazz music filling the air because the home was too far from the city and music could not reach. The home had other kinds of music though, bumblebees buzzing in the honeysuckle, boys marching in wooden guns in the courtyard, and the call of every bugle every morning and night. One day, Lewis discovered a room full of boys making enough sound to blow the house down. The wife's house had a band. He wanted to join on the spot, but the teacher, Mr. Davis, said he didn't need any new players, and boys from Perdido Streets were nothing but trouble anyway. Lewis felt a lump inside his throat like a size of fish head. But that didn't stop him. Every day after lessons and chores, he sat in the corner and listened to the band. Soon he knew all the parts by heart. After 6 long months of listening, Lewis saw Mr. Davis coming toward him during supper. "Would you like to join our brass band?" he asked. Lewis was too surprised to speak. "Wash up and come to rehearsal then." Running down the hall, Lewis wiggled his fingers on an imaginary horn, the way he had seen John Oliver do. "If I could sing, I could bring home pennies, play slow drag blues, tap happy feet blues till the sun rose if I only had a horn." But Mr. Davis did not give Lewis a horn. He gave him a little tambourine, and then a drum. Lewis rapped out a beat that made the boys tap their feet. Then he played a snappy little solo. "Hooray for Louis Armstrong!" the boys cheered. When Mr. Davis needed a new bugle boy, he chose Lewis over all the boys. Lewis shined up the dirty old bugle so it gleamed, and at night he blew such mellow tones that the boys tumbled into a bed and fell into deep sleep. But bugle was not the horn John Oliver had used to make those wah-wah sounds outside the Funky Butt Hall. "I have an awful urge to learn the cornet," Lewis said to Mr. Davis. "I know," said the teacher. "I knew the first day you burst in here," I said. That boy got an earful of Joe Oliver back home and can't get rid of it. The only cure is to play the horn himself. But you weren't ready for it. You thought King Oliver learned to blow like that overnight, and Bunk Johnson and Buddy Bolden too. They didn't, they practiced." Solemnly, he took down a beat old cornet from a high shelf and placed the instrument in Lewis's hands. "You are now ready," he said. "If I could sing, I could bring home pennies, play soul track blues, tap happy feet blues till the sun rose if I only had a horn." Lewis put battered but shiny cornet to his lips and blew. The first strains of Home Sweet Home shot into the air, and the colored waves of Home Band marched down Perdido Street. All the rough and tumble characters from the neighborhood appeared from nowhere and followed, dancing to the jumpy happy beat. "It's little Lewis! Find Mayon, quick!" "Hey, Dippermouth." Soon everybody Lewis knew had joined the second line. Uncle Ike and his 6 children, Big Nose Sidney and the singing quartet, Mama Lucy and Mayan waving a white handkerchief. Mr. Davies passed a hat and a cane bag full of bursting with coins and dollar bills waving merrily. The band played on, the music was loud and all a jumble. Now and then Lewis's cornet sent a melody spiraling up like a spinning top gone crazy. The teacher passed the hat again and again, until there was so much money that Mayan had to fetch a sack to put it all in. Mr. Davis shouted over the noise. "Thanks to the generosity of the residents of Perdido Streets, we have enough here to buy new instruments for everyone in the band." Lewis took the cornet from his lips just for a second and grinned. Then the band turned the corner and marched down Liberty Street with Lewis in the lead. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Now I'll help bring the story to life by playing my instrument for you. Now I will play a few songs for you so you can really hear what a trumpet sounds like.